Before we get started today, I do want to say we have some big news.
What?
That many bigs. Is that we now have merchandise.
Oh, yeah, we got stuff.
We got a TeePublic store, guys, which requires very little effort on my end. So it's great. Just go there. We'll put the link in the show notes. But if you want to support the podcast or just buy stuff for yourself, because that's usually what motivates me, is like, ooh, cute, a sticker or a button. But we've got buttons, stickers, mugs, basically anything TeePublic can put a logo on, they will put it on for you.
Yeah, you want like a lumber pillow with a mouth on it?
Yeah. Or
we have that.
New tote bag.
There you go.
Even though they're supposed to be bad for the environment. Can't have too many mugs.
You gotta carry stuff. And you gotta drink stuff.
I was thinking I'd get myself a mug just because I'm a mug addict.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
What harm does that do?
Well, you know what would be great is if we get to the place where we have a guest and then we've got 3 mugs.
Yeah.
And it's like, the Tonight Show. Everybody's got their like branded mug full of water.
We start doing like a whole like video recorded show situation.
Oh my God. I know that's the way like a lot of podcasts are going.
Uh-huh.
And I don't hate it. I think it's fine. But I'm also like, this is supposed to be an audio medium. And I'm like,
you don't want the pressure of having to expand
a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be open to it if somebody else did it. I don't want to have to figure it out, do it poorly, and look bad doing it.
Sure. No, like that. All the trial and error that comes with getting better at the medium. Let's just no. No.
Maybe like a special that I don't know. I got to
the embarrassing ordeal of showing effort and not being good right away.
Ooh, terrible.
I
can't stand it.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the first few episodes. Hey Chelsea.
Hey Victoria.
You know what I could use today?
What?
A breath of fresh movie.
Awesome. Me too.
All right, we're gonna do it.
Cool.
That's a movie I like to see.
You're listening to A Breath of Fresh Movie. This is a weekly podcast where me, Victoria Harley,
me, Chelsea Pope,
we watch a movie neither one of us has ever seen before, and then we talk about it. It's fun.
Yes.
It's real fun. I started saying that now. I'm like, it's fun.
Come on, nudge.
Yeah, you know you want to.
Get in the pool.
Yeah, you want to buy stuff. Today's episode is about the 2021 historical psychological drama Spencer, directed by Pablo Larraín. Set during Christmas 1991, the film focuses on Diana Spencer's existential crisis as she considers divorcing Charles and leaving the royal family. Not a biopic.
Yeah.
Like, that was something the director was like, don't think of it that way.
Yeah. I mean, we're using this historical figure, there's all this imbued meaning and all that stuff, but this is
it's not a biopic.
I don't want the responsibility of historical accuracy or
smart move.
That didn't happen. Well, that's that's okay.
That's what I intended.
I didn't make that.
I mean, I think there is something interesting about the fact that this movie assumes you have all the information.
Yeah, that's like the double-edged sword of making an argument of like, if this isn't, based on reality, but you go into something like this, it's hard not to have some sort of base understanding. And then if you don't, it's even harder sometimes to disassociate what you get from these kinds of, movies, shows, whatever.
Yeah.
And not have that projected into your opinion of the overall, your overall perception of that figure, of that monarchy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think? I mean, just on a base level, do we think the performance...
Are we going to the performance, or are we talking about movie first?
Well, I guess let's talk about movie.
Okay.
Just first impressions.
So first, this is one it'd been on my radar. I had definitely seen a lot of positive reception for this movie. And I did like Jackie, actually. I thought Jackie was pretty strong.
Same director, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another movie, not to jump ahead into the performance stuff. I want to talk about first overall the movie.
Sure.
But I was semi-aware going into Spencer. This isn't going to be a spot-on impression of Diana, nor would I want it to be, because that's its own sticky, tedious thing. And Natalie Portman playing Jackie, she's not doing a spot-on Jackie, but there is also that tenuous relationship with that movie too, where it's like, does it take away from the movie that we're noticing these certain mannerisms that feel like affects that are like applied on, not to which isn't to undercut like how well Natalie plays the film, but her best moments in that movie I feel are when they don't feel so heavily entrenched in the Jackie, you know, because in some cases, in some scenes, we are getting like spot on like reenactments, like when she's showing around the home, you know, and in those moments, it's hard not to think like, oh, is this kind of like an impression of Jackie kind of, and in my, you know, spoiler alert, you know, JFK gets shot.
Yeah.
And
he does?
Oh no. And I think one of the best scenes in that film is her quietly wiping her face, you know, which is not something that we've ever saw
seen.
Jackie do. You know, she had to handle things with a pretty stiff upper lip, and that movie, you know, is showing the interiority behind that. And then going back to Spencer, want to say I wanted to go into this to give the benefit of the doubt that this is not intended to be a direct impression of Diana, but it also is a story about Diana. It is a story about a woman unraveling under intense scrutiny. Yeah. And did that read? Yes-ish. It was. I like Jackie more. I think you're going to watch.
I never saw it.
I would watch. I still would rank Jackie higher.
Okay.
I don't want to say I was disappointed necessarily, but
you can though.
Yeah, I guess, you know, this was
received a lot of acclaim.
It really, and even still, you know, like looking up reviews for this, like there's so much positive going. Now talking about Kristen Stewart, you know,
let's get into it.
That's the focus, right?
I mean, she is carrying the picture.
It's her movie.
It's her film.
I think in part some of that positive reception is like, we want her to succeed, you know?
That's so true.
And I think Kristen Stewart is a very good actress. I've seen her do well in other roles. I
mean, to her credit, like since Twilight, she's really made an effort to like do indie and interesting shit.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. And like in talking about sort of the outside of the film world discussion, or outside of this film, in the larger conversation about her and her career, like it's satisfying to see an arc of growth, of maturity, in the same way that like Robert Pattinson, we see him like Good Time and like The Lighthouse. How, like,
that movie Twilight was so dismissed, but we're seeing like
we're seeing that people are growth involved in that film, are actively trying to make these sort of. I mean,
same with
strides.
Daniel Radcliffe,
right?
Same deal.
Yeah,
like, he's like, how do I get away from Harry Potter?
This large franchise that is so like projected onto me.
He's doing it,
right? I recognize. There's a loose parallel going on. I think that maybe Kristen Stewart could have identified in some ways to Diana under this kind of scrutiny or expectations, or failing to meet them, or presenting in one way, or showing a level of growth or maturity that may or may not be accepted. And so I went in wanting to accept that for her, wanting her to succeed.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm talking a lot.
No, I'm pleased.
All of this is to say,
it just didn't make it for you.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Her mannerisms are very extreme.
They are.
And I'm saying this also as somebody who, again, what I was just saying before, if you don't have a ton of familiarity, like I have some familiarity with Diana. I've seen some footage of her in the past, and you know, I'm aware of her cultural influence and legacy, but is this an accurate portrayal? For me, watching it, it felt, you know, from that first scene, she shows up and she's like, I'm a little bit lost, you know?
Yeah.
And I just watched Crimes of the Future, you know, a couple months ago, and I couldn't help, because she kind of got memed a little bit for that movie. Yeah. You know, because she does do so much of this, it's very potent. You know, so a lot of facial, like a lot of icing. You know, on the, you know, and I just felt like there was so much of that in this movie.
Yeah. It's so, I know what you mean, because the first time we hear her speak, I was just like,
am I just like afraid to say I don't like it? I don't know.
I think it's fine. I mean, I think the first moment she's lost, she goes into like a gas station and she's looking for directions. And this is a woman who's both like physically lost and otherwise. Like, it's obvious this woman is
a very obvious metaphor here. Like she's out of place.
Exactly. Doesn't know what she's doing. and she looks great doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it felt very pantomime to me at the top. Like that very first moment, the way she's kind of got her head bent and, and it's not like, I mean, people said like, oh no, it was spooky. She got her mannerisms down perfect. So maybe it was an accurate.
So yeah. And I'm not,
right. We don't know her. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm just like, this feels like it just felt so much.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, but wait, is that how Diana had to be in public? And so it's like a performance of a performance? Like these are the questions that
like
starts
that delicate balance of like, you don't want to be like, that's biopic stuff. Like it's getting stuck in that pigeonhole of like, oh, is this a spot on impression or should we be celebrating when people achieve that?
Yeah, right.
Or should we celebrate when there's something that's a little more authentic that may not have been true to the actual like physical mannerisms?
Totally.
That being said, it's a bit distracting, and it does feel a bit like, oh, this is Kristen Stewart doing some of those faces and those sighs and whatnot, and like I don't want to undercut it.
No, I mean, this is why I'm kind of glad we're not on video, because I feel like I don't know how to do an impression without it being. It's very physical, right? So much of it is the physicality,
right?
And not so like I felt like it wasn't. The speech sounded great or whatever, I mean, that voice was pretty spot on. But I agree. Like, I'm not a huge fan of biopics in general because of all these issues. I also have worked in documentaries, so I'm a bit of a snob about this, but I feel like a documentary about, when you have somebody whose face is still so well known, I think it's really, really cruel in a way to like make this actor try to live up to that. I just kept seeing Kristen Stewart in Diana costume, not Diana.
I don't think you're wrong for that, because I went in just I wanted her to succeed. I can't express enough how I guess disappointed I am in the fact that it was just incredibly difficult to I will say there were definitely scenes in this movie that felt like I wasn't seeing Kristen Stewart, but I didn't necessarily feel like I was seeing Diana either.
Sure.
And
maybe that's sort of the place to be, right?
Yeah. And in that capacity, which I don't want, I can't honestly say I felt that way the whole time watching it, though. Certainly not in the first scene, because it's a bit jarring, the amount of behavior,
it's
that's
so
happening.
Yeah.
It's 2 and 11. And it makes me think of, what other like semi-recent like biopics are coming out. You have Elvis, and like Austin Butler is getting so much praise, and all these side-by-side videos of him and these performances that Elvis did. Yeah. And so we're kind of celebrating how he's
mimicry. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, he commits really hard though. So we don't want to. I don't want to undersell that. I haven't finished Elvis yet. I watched about a third of it. That is also a lot. In a different way. As a Baz Luhrmann fan who's watched all his movies, it is a lot.
I like Baz Luhrmann, but I can't. I can't do it.
That's fair. It's honestly...
And another example of like somebody whose face we are still so aware of. And again, I say all this, but I'm also looking forward to Blonde,
Which that leads me to that as well, because there's criticism of this being essentially like Marilyn Monroe torture porn.
Yes, I've heard that too.
And I don't want to.
But that is literally what her life was.
Yeah, right. So, but is this not exploitation of someone who has further exploited her whole life? There's that conversation, and then now we look back at like how that very clearly can parallel the argument with Diana with Spencer here. Like what are we? What are we really saying? I guess like what's the conversation we're trying to have, or I guess art. I don't want to get into a whole like art has to have this big revelation or this big
art is art.
This clearly did well with
lots of people.
A lot of people. Although I do want to note the Rotten Tomato disparage of critics to audiences is
there's a gap.
There's a gap there, and I think that's important, because I think there's also a lot of people who probably are on the side that we are.
Yeah.
Not to say that we have the exact same opinions, but just it's not.
We differ sometimes.
It's not the be all end all.
No, and she's carrying so much of this movie, so it's like I'm I know that's difficult for an actor, and in no way, I mean, there's so many things working in this movie, you know, and I think like, right, we're spending some time to parse out like what didn't fit for us, but things that really did work for me. There were so many moments that felt like The Shining to me. Yeah. Like in this big, cold, empty house. I mean, the part where she goes and eats the cakes and stuff in the walk-in freezer, the Gregory, right, the guy who's running the place, he's like that Grady caretaker, you know, who's, oh, this is a horror film. And when I watched it with that, like the music fit, and it was like, oh, I am really enjoying this. And then there were certain scenes that clearly do break from reality. The dinner scene I'm thinking about, where she pulls off her pearl necklace.
There's so much with the pearls.
The pearls, man. So much with those pearls.
Well, so she pulls it off and then she eats it in her soup, but then there's like a bigger moment where she's supposed to pull the spoilers. Oh, we didn't really talk about spoilers. But,
oh, yeah. We will talk about anything. Yeah. But we won't talk about everything.
But then so like, I don't know. I think that scene, watching that, and then going back to her family home. Yeah. And then
right, the top of the stairs.
And then Anne Boleyn's like, take it off, or you know, she tears it on. I'm like, well, she already did that.
She did that already.
She ate it.
Like, I know we got 2 pearl breaking moments. That's true.
I think that deflated
a little bit.
And I really want to talk about like how disappointed I was then for the final scene to happen as well. Just like we're doing this sort of, it's got this psychological, you know,
you're talking about this
almost
montage.
Horror element, and then it goes to the end and it's like, oh, suddenly we're getting this reprieve of like almost not cartoonish, but like just it's a very dissonant kind of levity that like it didn't work for me, especially when they go to the KFC drive-thru. I was like, that really didn't work for me. I see what they're trying to do, but it's just you know, it felt camp in like the wrong way. Yeah. I'm saying this after having watched the Diana
musical,
pro shot musical on Netflix, and that's also
to see that.
Camp. I think it's just a fun contrast.
No, I mean, I read about that in reading about this.
It's not good. No, it's not good. I don't want to. I'm not. I don't want to say that that's
let's
better
make
than
it
Spencer.
Absolutely clear. It's not good. But that was, from what I understand, it's like that's more of a just sort of one-to-one, the stages of her life. You know,
it's kind of from the point of her getting married to Charles, and then it's kind of You could argue that Spencer and Diana the musical are polar opposites in depiction, which in some ways is very true. Yeah, you know, you have Kristen Stewart clipping herself with the bolt cutters.
That was upsetting. Yeah. I was like, holy fuck! I think...
like I said then, you know, the KFC thing doesn't feel very earned for that. It almost feels a little bit. Like
a little saccharine. It's
saccharine, and also just I mean, I don't want to say cringe. Cringe is lazy. Yeah, we're given so much intensity, and while I understand then that this sort of levity of them like breaking out and going to pick up some fast food is kind of, it just doesn't, it's not satisfying. Yeah. And I think 53% on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience, as far as audience score goes. Okay. I think others might agree. Not that Rotten Tomatoes would be all end all.
No. But, you know, let the people speak. Yeah. Okay, you get such a sense of the paranoia of being in this place.
Yeah, the vibes are there.
Oh, and the isolation. There may be an assumption, right? They're like, these rich fucks, they just sit around and eat great food and have those time. But when you see how absent of joy that dining scene is, and just how rigid, and like, I thought they did so much with wordlessly. Like when the trays are all set, and then all the staff leaves, and we're like holding on the queen, and we can see the staff leaving, then closing the doors. And only then does the queen kind of then take, you know, a taste of her soup. And once she does, everyone else can. Right. And there's so much wordless like protocol, you know, and I mean, then there's like more that's a little more like in your face, like the weighing in, right? You know, which apparently was a real thing. There's tons of articles out there, by the way, about what's real and what's not in this. I don't care.
Which again, you know, like that's like the problem, the territory you go into and you do something like this, and there's, you know, clearly there's a lot of stylistic choices that are being made. It's very beautifully shot.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Costuming's great. And again,
all the elements are working.
There's a lot of those signature like close-up shots, just like in Jackie. Yes. On Kristen Stewart's face. And the emotion is there and it's potent. It's a little hard for me to initially get into it because the We actually start with not like a wide shot, but
it's like an overhead, right? Or
she's like when she goes into, well, first we see her drive and she goes, fuck.
Right.
And we're like, okay, there's a little bit of, she's got all that
Chanel.
Yeah.
On,
and it's kind of like I felt like that teased a different kind of movie.
Yes.
Almost.
Totally.
That there was going to be something a little more self-assured going on. But she just seemed so like spun before even getting into the getting there, you know. At least by, you know, she gets there and she gets to that one cafe and says that she's lost, and again that it really is a little bit dry because there's just so much behavior happening
so
there.
So much going on.
And then there is some stuff there you're like, oh, it kind of that does remind me a little bit of what you did in Crimes of the Future. There's a little bit of some signature case stew, I'm going to argue, is happening. And she's not fully disappeared in that scene for me, but then we get into some of those signature close-ups and like we really do see a lot of emotionality.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, those close-ups, I mean, I think the cinematographer even mentioned something about how like, oh, I like never use these lenses because we never need to be this close. But I mean, the depth of field on that is particularly, you know, just thinking about that dinner scene where she's eating the pearls.
Right.
It's like if she moves even a little bit forward or back, she starts to go in and out of focus. So it's like, there was I mean, I can't imagine as an actor. I mean, I can imagine, but you know, I don't want to do it. But like, she must have just had so much shit right in her face. Yeah. And for her to like still be able to, I know that's the job, but still, it always blows me away. I also love to just see corgis on film.
Yes. The dogs are very cute.
The dogs were very cute. Yeah, the Anne Boleyn stuff was, I wasn't sure what to make of that. I was kind of like, and the whole detail of like the book being in her room, and then it turns out Gregory put it there.
Yeah, so then is he like a secret protagonist the whole time kind of deal? There's this whole like he talks a big talk about it being in service of the crown, and that's after this what seems like it's going to be a heartfelt sort of like war story between him and a buddy that
I mean, I can't decide if he was actually, I think he was trying to help her. I don't think he was trying to bring her down. Yeah. But the number of interactions they have where he explains like duty.
Yes.
He does this whole story about like seeing a horse get killed or
and then she's like, oh, I'm glad it never got broken. You know,
it's the guy who was on the horse who gets killed and then the horse runs off. Like, and I don't know, there's this whole metaphor, but the whole thing is it's very unsatisfying. I don't think he ever really understands her, and I don't think she ever finds any comfort from him.
Yeah, I don't know if the horse breaking free, again, going to a KFC drive-thru, I don't think that's my favorite like translation of that kind of like horse breaking free metaphor that you're kind of trying to go for there.
Let's run toward a faceless multinational corporation.
You know, again,
I love fried chicken.
Yeah,
but,
sure. Again, the metaphors and what have you, they do feel quite heavy-handed. The Anne Boleyn stuff for sure.
Yeah. Although the only thing I can say is that if we are like admitting that this is not so much a biopic, but it's more of a surreal psychological drama and all that, I did think the meditations on the past, present, and future were really interesting. Mm-hmm. Like talking about how this family doesn't have a future. It only has the past and the present. Also those scenes with the kids, just her and her children, they might have been the only scenes that kind of emotionally worked for me. Yeah. And I did read that there was some improvisation going on there, and it felt very relaxed.
So it felt very natural.
Yeah, and I did, and I'm not saying this to be like, how could you think of killing yourself when you have two children that you love? Like, I'm not going to step into that one. But the contrast, though, it does feel like, wow, they're so important to you, but they're not central in the story either. Like they're still sort of sidelined.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're pretty important at the end that she, you know, again, fully leans into the metaphor of being a wild animal by going out as though she's hunted. Again, it's super heavy-handed stuff. If you're not into that sort of thing.
There's so much metaphor in visual tropes and things of like pheasants and birds being hunted.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, she goes out there and is like, you know, you'll have to shoot me, you know, if you have to get, I want my kids.
I do think like there's a moment where I'm like, she is acting a little bit crazy. Like, I mean, I'm not to be like that person who's for the royals. I can sort of understand though maybe why they're like, what now?
Yeah, I think we just kind of like got dropped into like a boiling pot of water before any sort of But then the lobster was already like upset and freaking out before.
Yeah, it was already, clanging against the thing.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of things working, but I think the things for me that worked were the stuff that acts on you without you realizing it.
Yeah.
Because when I went back and started reading about the shoot, it was interesting how many different elements, like from production design to costumes to music, choices made. And I think just a few notes about the shoot. It was a 37-day shoot, mostly done in Germany, and it was during like COVID lockdown. So some of the locations, one of them is called the Schloss Hotel Kronberg, which is actually usually a 5-star hotel, very elite, can't get in. But because it was locked down and they had nobody, they were like, yeah, sure, you can film here. And so they were able to like access this location they normally wouldn't have been able to, pull out all the furniture. And that was part of it. It was like, we wanted it to be, it wasn't meant to be a one-to-one representation of what Sandringham was like. We knew we weren't going to try to go for that recreation accuracy like The Crown might do. But we are going to create an impression. So almost all of it was shot in these like castles around Germany. And the production design was really focused on empty spaces, like this small figure in this big empty, cold place. So you can feel that coldness. The music was done by Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead, which that guy has done so many scores at this point. It's like amazing how people like him and Trent Reznor and like all these people have found like a second life scoring, television and film. I don't know. I'm always kind of excited.
Yeah, it's great.
Like it. I think it
was really good.
The music was fantastic.
Right. I liked the dramatic way that it had these suspenseful tones.
We needed it.
But then there was the sort of jazz.
Yes.
There was that jazzy, very percussive music that would permeate through. And again, this is another one of those moments where, she's going down the hall, you start hearing kind of this jazzy stuff, and it reminds me of like the tension building in Whiplash. And I almost felt like a different movie was maybe going to happen a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, it just made me think like I would have liked to have seen, as much as I'm aware that this is intended to be almost like a psychological horror, like The Shining comparison is great. I could have stood for a little bit more levity. I don't know. So maybe it sounds like a trait. No, like smooth brained thing. But I think Princess Diana, and all of her sadness and mental health woes and struggles with the monarchy. Like I think that part of what made her so endearing to the public was this very, I think. And she's not just this innocent, she's not like a wild animal. I think there's something, I don't know, the playfulness. Yeah. No, which again, we kind of got almost sort of like thrown at us as a joke with the KFC shit at the end. And I'm like, well, I don't know.
I hear you. I do. No, you're right. Because I'm thinking about that one example, right, where she participated in the foot race, at her kids thing, and royals weren't supposed to do that, but she took off her shoes and ran as hard as she could. I mean, she did it. That the kind of, I think, frankly, I think what people in Britain liked about her was that human quality.
Yeah, she had a sense of humor, Yeah, and you see her get a little snarky with the royals and the help and whatnot. But it's very, it's very seething. And she's very resentful and understandably, sure, I get it. But I think, I don't know. I think, then you look at Diana the musical and it's like the total opposite end of the spectrum. With this is how your people dance is like a very silly bop song that they do to show she's she doesn't want to go to a cello concert, she wants to listen to Queen. I don't know. So again, they kind of almost throw it as an afterthought at
it
the
is
end
a little bit.
It's not.
I hear you though. I mean, there are all these there's all these moments we've seen, again, because there's so much just footage and material and photos of this woman and interviews, and so I think, it's got to be tough. I think this was definitely a difficult subject to tackle. After he finished Jackie, Pablo Larraín, he was at the Toronto Film Festival and he was trying to develop this story about Diana Spencer, and he saw Kristen Stewart's agent in the lobby of the hotel and literally ran. I gotta tell you, please, would she do this? Would she consider it? And of course she was into it. And that's how that all got started anyway. But Stewart at the time was in Paris promoting Seberg, another biopic about Jean Seberg, which I haven't seen that one. I don't know if that's any good. She was in the car with her friends when he called or the call came through, and she told everyone pull over, I have to get out, and I need all my focus. And so she took the call on the side of the road. I'm just saying all this because it seemed like no matter what our impressions are, there was like a really strong interest in getting this right or doing something very interesting and different.
Yeah.
And this draws on things like Rapunzel, Sleeping Beauty, Jack and the Beanstalk, even to a certain extent, like, because stories that are about escape, right? Like fairy tales about escape. And this does feel like a sort of twisted little fairy tale. She's a princess trapped in a castle.
Right.
Like and I'm with you. I almost wish it like maybe push that just a little further or something.
Yeah.
So it felt less grounded in reality and a little bit more about the psychological drama of it,
Absolutely. Because again, when you're dealing with when you're dealing with a real person in history and biography,
it's tough.
It's tough because then it's like I'm also thinking of it now like that it was a very bleak, tough watch, save for sort of the ending. That clearly I hated it. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. But beyond that, now I'm thinking to like Ana de Armas and Blonde, and I'm thinking like again, is this in my mind, is it just kind of suffer porn a little bit? Like, to me,
I hear you. I do.
I feel like, are we in our own way? Are we undercutting the humanity of this person?
Yes.
Is this not sort of oversimplifying the complexity of this person by making them into the scared trapped animal? And again, I get it, but did I like it?
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking what you were just saying earlier about Jackie, how for you, one of the better moments was the private moment of her wiping her face that we know must have happened, but in no way did we ever get a view to. Mm-hmm. I think that's, not to be prescriptive, but I feel like that's really where these biopics should be living, is in those spaces like that we can only kind of assume. And that way no one can really be like, well, they didn't say that. Well, it's like, well, we don't know.
Yeah, it's like if you're going to add something new to the conversation or a new perspective, then like lean into the idea of deviation.
Yeah, be okay with it. I mean, I'm thinking about Todd Haynes' it's not really a biopic, but the film about Bob Dylan where like 5 or 6 different actors played him. Uh-huh. And, including like Cate Blanchett, right? To much acclaim. I mean, I loved that. That was great. But I think what was so cool about that was like, it was never a one-to-one. It was never like, this is Bob Dylan's life. It was just these like moments in his life. And, and you can debate, how effective certain ones were, but it had this way of like allowing you to accept everything.
Right.
Because it's like, well, I know we're deliberately taking these like vignettes rather than, this is when he went electric and this is when this happened. And, moments that are already captured and well documented, I'm a big fan of documentary. And I will say about maybe a few weeks before we watched Spencer, I happened to watch a new documentary about Diana. And I know it's like another one.
It's okay. I mean, there's a demand.
It was on HBO. But for me, it was like, this is where doc is amazing because the whole thing is archival. There's no narration. Mm-hmm. There's no talking heads interviews. It's 100% all these like the moments, and I know we've seen a lot of footage of her. These there's this moment, right, where Charles says something kind of shitty and everyone laughs and she's like looking and people are like, what is she thinking? But what's really great about that doc is that they find all those moments, but they don't cut away. Like we're used to seeing this chopped up little, like, here's the moment. But no, when you linger and you really feel like seconds and minutes after, it's like, and you see her and they hold on her in the way that it's just so obvious how miserable she is.
Right.
It's so obvious. But it's like, and people must have known at the time, but other people were completely oblivious, and it just, I don't know, this feels like the story of any celebrity or any tragic, loss where there's this presumption on the outside of how good it must be. And then there's the reality. And I don't know. I get why we're fascinated with her story because it is truly tragic. Yeah. It's like almost everyone, I guess, feels this desire to go and avert it. There's this like, I wish I could warn her.
I think thinking about everything you're saying too, like it makes me think again back to Spencer about what I don't think it's so much levity or I needed her to like laugh and smile more, I guess, in this movie, but it's more so the fact that she wasn't just constantly crying and barfing and feeling sorry for herself and being like, it wasn't all that, you know? And what makes her passive, one aspect of her passing being so tragic is she was so bright.
Yeah.
And it's just, it seems like the joy is just sucked out of this whole movie and out of Diana. And I know, again, that is intended.
Yeah.
And you're either into it or not. For me, again, it doesn't work.
Holidays are tough.
I get it. And I get stylistically that's the choice. And we're just talking about how you should make choices.
Sure.
People like choices.
Not all of them.
I think that there's like a beautiful brightness to Diana from what I have seen.
Yeah.
You know, that is just, we're kind of just seeing just the lowest point, I guess, for Diana without any, there's no let up.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. And it is concentrated down to 3 days, you know, and over Christmas. So it's like Christmas Eve, Christmas, and Boxing Day. And I don't care. Even if you love your family, Christmas is hard.
Sure.
So I'm like, on some level, I'm just like, remember the feeling of when you're stuck at some kind of Christmas gathering and you just don't want to be there.
Right.
But then like multiply that by 1,000.
Right.
You know, like amp the stakes up way higher. And it's upsetting. I got to mention something that the wig like was they had to get the hair right.
Right.
So the person in charge of the wig was Wakana Yoshihara, who, when she started out as a hairstylist, one of the 3 cuts she had to master in the mid-90s was the Diana. Like that was like you had to know how to do that. You had to know how to cut and style and all of that. So she felt pretty well equipped to handle this and just described like, yep, every day, it was just repeating those kinds of behaviors. And I know maybe it sounds odd, but it's like, no, the wig had to be right. It looked right.
Yeah.
Also for set decoration, I mentioned earlier lots of tapestries with birds and pheasants being hunted and things like that. 60 paintings were actually commissioned. They commissioned 60 original paintings to hang around. And when I hear that, I'm like, I need to watch this again because I was not paying attention to those elements. And a part of me feels like, oh, I think I might have missed some shit,
Yeah.
But again, maybe it's all what you're saying, though. It's all contributing to this. She's an animal. She's wounded. She's trapped. She's, so I don't know. Again, so when I was saying earlier about all these things that are operating on you, I was like, or maybe I just didn't watch it on a big enough screen. I mean, honestly, that could be part of it. And sometimes I think, too, when I don't have a wow moment with a movie, I do wonder, it's like, well, maybe if I'd seen it in a theater, I'd be a little bit more, swept away with it. One thing I want to point out, though, is that, there was a moment where she's taking a shower and she's using a very interesting looking shower. And apparently that is an authentic Victorian, what was called a rib cage shower. And it was just, I don't know. I was like, wow, what is that? Like, I was so curious about, so I don't know. They have all these interesting elements. Nowadays, like, you can get those showers where you've got spouts coming out everywhere. Right. So it's just like, oh, they had that? Like,
yeah, I found that whole bathroom, that shower, to feel very like, it felt very, even though that is like pretty blue tile, it is very sterile, it was very clinical. This whole movie just felt super cold and dusty. I had to put on an extra sweater when I was watching it.
It's chilly.
It was very chilly the whole time.
The film was cut together in about 7 weeks, which is a very fast editing time. But,
it's concise. 37-day shoot, 7-week cut.
I mean, that's well done.
They knew what they wanted to do. I commend them. This is a very straightforward type of thing. And if you like it, great.
Yeah. And I think even though we may not respond to it, there is a clear point of view. There's a clear decision. And, I think, that's why things can come together so well and so quickly. Because when you really know what you want, there's no hemming and hawing. It's just like, nope, do this. We want this. And the director acknowledges, too, that, you're never really doing what you intend to do. There's all these like accidents that happen in cinema. And he called it the ghost of cinema. Like things that you couldn't have planned and that seem intentional or work out better. And I guess at the end of each shooting day, the director had Stewart, no matter how tired she was, go to the wardrobe rack, pick out a Diana dress, put it on, and then he would play music for her and ask her to respond to it. Now, whether that meant dancing or whatever.
So that's what that montage is.
Yes, every single day over 37 days, they shot a little bit more of that big montage.
Yeah.
And
it's a great perfume ad. It's like Diana, the fragrance.
That's what it felt like. And I mean, it was funny because I went back and read about it and they were like, oh, it's a 3.5 minute long montage. I'm like, was it that long? Fuck.
I felt it. I'm going to be honest. I felt it. I was really not. I like this didn't, again, as they aced what they were going for, didn't hit for me.
When you say like the
and at that point, it just felt very.
That definitely felt.
It's too much icing.
That was the part that I think if there was like a sort of psychological torture porn moment, I think just if it's not her in the broken down old house she was in, it's her remembering herself as a child. Like she's mourning herself,
right,
in this way that, like, yeah, if you've been low in life, you can sort of like that desire for regression, right? There's a lot of us who experience that desire to return to childhood when we experience trauma or something upsetting, or you just have a bad day and you're like, I just want to.
It makes me think about the house now too, and she goes into that. It's such like a haunted house. It's so dilapidated, and like the stairs are falling apart.
Which that apparently, just to quibble with reality, the house was fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew that. I definitely was like, how old is this house? Like she wasn't that old at that time.
Yeah.
She lived in as I was perfectly fine. Just, again, stylistic.
It was a choice.
I get it. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Let's get up the stairs already.
Yeah.
I get it. Let's go see Anne Boleyn at the top of the stairs and rip off our pearl necklace again.
Let's do it.
Let's do this.
Did you find any like interesting reviews or reception or anything?
You know, again, a lot of positive reviews.
I know.
So yeah, like on Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 83% with critics.
Okay.
But it has a 52% audience score.
Wow.
So
that's a disparity.
That's quite a disparity, and I think a lot of what we've talked about has to do with that. However, on Letterboxd, mostly a lot of likes and positive reviews and what have you. I'll start with the Letterboxd ones first, because they're like, I think some of them are kind of stupid, and the more and more that I'm like, I want to show that side of like movie criticism, reception, but it is a lot of clout chasing crap, and it's a lot of just like
movie critics don't do that,
you know. So I don't know, like you make of that what you will, but these are some of the most liked top of the feed Letterboxd reviews. 3 stars from Harley. Princess Diana is so cool. I wish British people were real. Jay with a 4.5-star review. Kristen Stewart is again accepted into a family of blood-sucking demons, this time with horrific consequences. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of like on the fence about how much I want to do more Letterboxd ones, because it is a lot of that kind of, you know, these people have bigger followings than me, so far be it for me to say that shit's kind of annoying after a while. Like, you either like it or you don't. Again, you either like Letterboxd or you don't.
No,
That's why I don't do it that much.
We've discussed it because it's more about
I'm not funny enough, and I resent them. That's why.
I definitely have moments where I'm like, I want. It's like anything, you know, you have to go through a lot of shit. You have to kiss a lot of frogs, you know?
Yeah, I just think like some of the joke stuff is fun, and then sometimes I'm like,
sometimes the joke is actually a very smart, pithy criticism. You know?
I think the best Letterboxd reviews are the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Something that's like under 4 lines, a prescient take, like a salient point,
at least
while also saying something, you know,
kind of cute.
Yeah, you know.
I think we literally talked about it last week, but I was like, I can't write an earnest Letterboxd review. Like I feel embarrassed.
You're
if
kind
I
of
do.
discouraged.
You're
discouraged
when I see people doing it, and I don't want to say like you can't do anything earnest, but it's kind of like, you're right, 4 lines or less.
What's really why I don't do it as much now, because I very quickly get that raised heart rate, like social media anxiety, being on that platform just as much as I would on like Twitter, especially.
Totally.
Now it's not really about the movie. It's about how fucking funny can you, like, how you know.
Yeah, who's got the best joke about this movie.
Who's got the quip.
It absolutely has that element.
And that's not to say that there aren't exceptions, but
it's a fair, like, I only joined it because of another movie friend of mine was like, you have to get on Letterboxd. And most of sorry.
So they can build their clout.
He doesn't sound like that. What it honestly,
and
I could just do this on a pad of paper. This is my millennial dumbness, but it's like, it is this way that I track what I watch. because I do watch a lot of movies, and I get a sick kind of pleasure out of looking back on my diary and seeing like, I watched 20 movies this month. Look at me. You know, it's so stupid, but
some of it's fun. Like there's fun to be had, but I find myself overthinking what I'm saying is clever, interesting enough.
Guys, follow Chelsea on Letterboxd.
Don't follow me, because I'm not funny, and that's where this is all stemming from.
Okay.
I'm a hater, and that's why I'm shitting on Letterboxd.
Okay.
I do want to go back to Rotten Tomatoes,
please.
I want to focus on the user reviews there again too. Or sorry, no, these are not the user reviews. These are critic reviews.
Yeah.
A top critic actually said a very concise thing that I came to independently without the help of Sandra Hall. No, this is
You
very.
guys see it the same way.
A very concise from the Sydney Morning Herald. In a breathless, headlong way, Stewart does a credible job, but she's perched on the edge of hysteria throughout, and the upbeat ending fails to alter the impression that she and Lorraine have delivered a one-dimensional portrait of a victim. Credible is a good operating word in that. I think what brought my attention specifically to that is her calling out that ending. To be fair, even though it has a splatter, it is a 3 out of 5 rating. She didn't hate it.
Yeah, I mean,
the next 3 reviews after that, although the third one cut off, there's a lot of positive reviews. Again, Jason Bailey of Crooked Marquee. Stewart was an unlikely, but now it's clear, ingenious choice for the role. She's going through such a period of pronounced anguish that the wrong kind of actor would have played the whole thing as overwrought and ruined it. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Kristen Stewart was good casting. I don't know if there would have been a better choice, but it is overwrought in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then Grace Lavery from Bitch Media said, by exhuming Lady D from her saintly casket, Lorraine and Stewart have done the world a great favor. There's obviously more to these reviews, but these are like the snippets. But then, okay, sorry, I am going to read 1 or 2 user reviews from Rotten Tomatoes. One being from Jime S. I don't know, whatever.
It's fine.
Stewart's acting is way too exaggerated. The script is way too metaphorical. Instead of being an objective depiction of Diana's life and the royalty, it seems like the fairy tale of princess in distress. Yeah. And then Miss S just put, and that was 1 star, and this one's also 1 star. It was hard to watch.
I mean, that's a pretty succinct.
So I try to give a rounded,
appreciate it.
A collection of reviews.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's tricky too, because this is such a recent one. Like when we talk about Letterboxd or Rotten Tomatoes, it's
this
like
is the new form.
This is where the discussion's happening now. You know, it is on Twitter. There are also critics, but you know, that's where we're at right now. Whereas like a bunch of people can speak to it instead of just these, you know, the tweed wall.
Yeah.
Now there's a black t-shirt moat around it.
Right.
So I appreciate when you bring in, you know, voices that probably aren't being echoed very much. I think that's great.
You know, I think it's just, as Spencer is a great example of a movie where I think it really is important to examine what works critically and then, not, and also just how does this hit with a general audience?
Yeah, no, totally, because there's lots of things I adore that a general audience won't, and I will defend those things with my life, you know. But there's other things that I do want to know how, you know, for lack of better words, real people, like what does an average, I hate that idea. What is an average person? There's no average person in the world. Like I hate that expression, but I
wish British people were real. I don't know. I'm so just poisoned with social media stuff. So when I see like meme stuff,
you know, people are playing the lottery. It's like, I'll buy a ticket here and a ticket here and a ticket here. And
that person's like probably way cooler than me, has like 1 million followers on like all the platforms anyway too. Because that's the other thing, is that a lot of the Letterboxd I noticed is just Twitter. Like a lot of people are already big on Twitter, just relocating.
No, I mean, and people, you know, people who host other more popular movie podcasts like Blank Check and stuff. Like Griffin Newman has a ton of followers.
Sure.
Fran Hefner.
And some of those are people I'm like, oh, I want to hear their opinion of. And those are some of the reviews I read where I'm like, oh, this is a good balance of it being concise, but also having an opinion, but also having maybe a little humor. You know, it's like there's nice little.
I'm going to share a little bit about our director, Pablo Larraín. He's a Chilean filmmaker. He was born in 1976 in Santiago, Chile. His father was a law professor and a senator in the Independent Democratic Union I had to look into this. That sounds like a nice thing, but it was actually a right-wing conservative political party that supported Augusto Pinochet's dictatorship.
Okay.
His mother was also a politician in the same group, Magdalena Mate, and she was the former Minister of Housing and Urban Development. He studied Pablo studied audiovisual communication at the University of Arts, Sciences, and Communication in Santiago. He and his brother co-founded Fabula, a production company, and he began as sort of more of a commercial director. His first feature was called Fuga in 2005. Follow-ups, Tony Manero, Postmortem, and a movie called No. And I guess those last three were an unintentional trilogy. They're all set during Pinochet's rule in Chile. He then went on to make The Club, Neruda, Jackie, which we talked about, Emma. He also participated in that Netflix series of short story, the post-COVID thing, Homemade. I don't know if you're familiar. I didn't watch. I can't watch anything related to
It's okay.
And then finally Spencer. And I know I mentioned his parents being fairly conservative. It's worth noting though that he does not share their politics. He in fact is so kind of, having grown up in that era, he says, Chile found itself unable to express itself artistically for nearly 20 years. The right wing throughout the world is not very interested in culture. And this reveals the ignorance that is probably theirs, because it's difficult for someone to make the most of something or to enjoy it if you have no knowledge of it. To make that a statement like that. And I agree. I have a tendency to believe that culture is much stronger than government or law or any of those things. Like, it's what people really think and feel and believe and hold true, and law sometimes doesn't reflect that. So I think it's cool that this is somebody who I don't know, I don't want to say like rebelled against his parents. I don't know fully, but he obviously took his advantages, and now he's doing, he also offers opportunities to like emerging filmmakers. I mean, it reminds me of Almodovar in Spain, talking about how no one was really allowed to do anything. And then there was this explosion, right, once censorship ended. He participated in the Sight and Sound poll in 2012. And I'm just mentioning that because these are what he considered his top 10 most important films. 2001: A Space Odyssey, 8.5, Apocalypse Now, Ivan's Childhood, Ordet, Rashomon, Tokyo Story, Sunset Boulevard, Vertigo, and Vivre sa vie. Who's your best supporting player?
I mean,
I said Gregory.
Yeah.
I mean, right.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah. Not really.
She doesn't really interact. I mean, you could. The dresser. Was her name Maggie? No.
Yeah.
Was it Maggie?
It is
okay.
Maggie. And I like that actress. I'm glad you brought her up actually, because I really didn't like the whole "I'm actually in love with you" thing.
I hated that.
And I hated the whole like the note in the card. All of this is just feels so sort of like thrown in. So I'm not the only one who loves you. So the note, it's just like. And she's supposed to be like this composite of people who did love and support her.
Yeah.
But the very fact that it's a composite and is you're oversimplifying, and you're also minimizing a level of love and support she actually did have.
Yeah.
It was, but again, stylistic choice. I get it.
Course.
I get why, if you want to make this into like a horror adjacent kind of film, we can't have her having a ton of people working for her that are like, we love you, love you, princess.
Right.
Don't listen to them nasty royals. She can't have a bunch of people on her side.
No.
We have to have this one person who gets taken away.
Yes, and then
I get it.
Brought back.
But I'm actually in love with you.
Yeah,
that's all supposed to be like a metaphor, but like,
I think that I was just like, why is this necessary?
That
right
almost
now?
felt like a joke.
It really did.
But it didn't hit for me.
It didn't hit for me either. But
Sally Hawkins is a. Wait, is that the right?
Yeah,
name? Yeah. She's
Sally
a great
Hawkins.
actress.
Yeah,
I liked her. And again, I was just as disappointed as Kristen Stewart as Diana was disappointed that she was not in this movie more.
Yeah,
because we needed more.
I think that could have been
support. I think.
Yeah, that could have been. Could have offered some balance.
Could have gone with some balance
because we don't really. It's not until they're on the beach together that we see her kind of running around laughing, and it's. I agree. That scene really didn't. I don't know. It was like
I'm beating up. We beat up this movie plenty.
We have. That's true. Would you watch this again?
Probably, no.
I would only watch again to catch those paintings.
It's a very good looking piece of cake, and then when you cut into it, it's just all icing.
Yeah, just like a little lady finger at the bottom.
Yeah. And a little lady finger at the bottom's like bitter as fuck.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sounds good. Follow us, listen to us, review us, love us.
We're so funny.